Hello everyone, we welcome Gaurav Markan to the show. He comes with an industry experience of over 22 years. He has experience with photography, with cinematography and creative direction. I absolutely love his style of work. It is very surreal. He plays with the lights and the darkness and it's very mystical. Also, a cherry on the cake is that he works with Canon India. He spearheads all the ambassadors program there. He leads the strategic alliances and the B2B marketing for Canon. We welcome you to the show, Gaurav.
Thank you so much, Barkha.
Alright, so what would you like me to call you? Gaurav Markan or Surreal Dot Frames?
Both are fine. You can blend it either ways.
But what is closer to your heart? So you as an artist or you as a person who is bringing those artistic visions to reality for all the photographers using your gear?
So I think the artistic part is always I have a stronger bend towards. So because that's where I feel my soul exists. You know, like in the kind of craft I love to do. So it's always on the art form. Always on the priority. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. I really love your style of work. Tell us something little more about Surreal Frames. We would be interested to.
So I think it's been a journey now. So I have found my craft, you know, like by being a lot of time that I spend into nature, you know, like, so I think that's where it started all about. So, you know, you always have a place where you find the most calmest part of your soul, you know, like, and I think I realized right from the childhood age, you know, and what happens in the journey of life, you transits into many career forms, but I realized that when I finally, every time I have been encircled around with so many creative form, you know, like it has really pulled me very strongly.
Right.
But I think it took a good year of experience, you know, like to realize that where I belong to, and I would say that the Surreal Raw Frames is in specimen, you know, like that how it clarifies the style of work that I do. So I've been in a lot of love with nature and of course into different form of characters. I don't love to call any of the human forms also as a models. I think every character has something to do as a role play. So this brings a lot of attention and experience from my cinema blend that you always see a role player. You know, like in a frame, in a composition, or it's a continuous video content or stuff like that. So I have a lot of love with nature, and when it comes to character, I really look forward to blend it. Parallelly, I love a lot of mysterious kind of form of art, you know, like that always raises the eyebrows. Always there is a curiosity to know what is it all about, what is this, whether it's a question on the place, whether it's a question on the art form, whether it is the concept itself. I think I really strongly believe to design and craft very, very original stuff. So that's what I always advise also when people ask me about it. So Surreal Frame is absolutely about light in the darkness, a lot of stories around mysterious characters, the mystery itself, and a lot of blend together with the nature. So that is something which is closest to my heart.
And what I really love about your work is the thought process you bring into that. Like every image is a story in itself, and if I show that image to 10 people, they would interpret it in their own manner. And I guess that is what is the magic of the photographer here, of the artist. And you're not just being the artist, you're the creative director there. You are talking to the costume designer just to create that one frame. I think that is absolutely stunning. So how have your early years of life been? Like, have you always been into photography, or how did it go?
So yeah, that question comes to me very often. But I think I've been really into the sketching from my childhood days. Yeah, so I have been doing that for a while. But you know, as you transit in career, so of course there are a lot of advisors around, you know, like which are got pretty much faded away these days. But I think when I go back to my college days, of course there is a lot of pressure of choosing from the top 3 to 4. I think it recalls me always the example of Three Idiots. The moment you're born and you are loaded with those kind of options. So I think I also got trapped to some extent in my initial years. So I have to say that I've come from a software engineering background in the initial days, but then since I was blessed to have my first job connected to gaming industry, like in all that, it gave me an opportunity to learn also how games are designed.
Okay.
So designing, every time I got a clue at different stages of career that do you want to do the code or more to do with the design part.
Right.
So I think design pulled me always. So I started to get into how games are being designed and finally that how this kind of landscapes are being done, characters are being done.
That creative process was always on.
So that triggered me the first sign that it has to do a lot with visualization and also photography, because you used to create high resolution pictures and they were used as textures into gaming environment and all. So that means you need to understand the actual place first and gradually replicate it in any of the gaming engines and stuff like that. So I think because I had a blend of coding and then followed by the designing element, I think, and then design was mandatory to be done with the photography as part of it. So I started clicking entire Delhi. So that's where I did one of my biggest projects, into simulation. Okay. So from there I entered into simulation design, into automobile simulation, into aviation simulation. So I was designing at one point of time in my career, I was designing for a very big brand, like an automobile brand of India, like one of the oldest brand. I think that is itself a clear example to know. So like for Maruti Suzuki, in fact, and all that. So over there we were designing entire Delhi. Wow. And all that, and that's where I picked my first time. I started clicking with small, like PowerShot kind of cameras and all. And I think from there, I started realizing this is something I should not be doing for the job of clicking, but I was getting very inclined towards compositions, into storytelling, and it never stopped. Like from there. So I traveled to different places in India, across India, outside India, and I've been clicking different forms. And I think you mature as you keep on clicking and keep on going places, that what is pulling you the most.
Very true.
So I ended up having a very clear answer for myself that the mysteries of lights and the surrealism is the game for me. Like that is something where I feel my soul to be absolutely filled. Like when I do that.
And your style of work, that's like very different. It is not just something which is easily seen. And that represents you, that represents your soul. And I guess that is what makes it so beautiful.
Yes. So I think that's why I always advise that that original craft is something which I always believe very, very strongly. Like it's good. Of course, we should be watching work. Many people might feel to be inspired today when they watch this podcast. But I would say that always get inspired and see how you can recreate your original original craft itself. So I think it's not a good idea to replicate. I see a lot of people absolutely copying straightforward, and I think that's a very serious problem. At times people want shortcuts in art form and this kind of career, and I think when you step into this, I think you have to be very clear that you need to be known with your work. So one of my mentors in this journey has told me in the initial years that when your work is recognized with your craft without your signature, that this style of work is done by Gaurav Markan, I think you've arrived at a very matured stage that your work style is speaking without signature. So, and I think that takes a very long time.
And I would say that has happened with your work.
Yes, it's. I would still say it's in progressive.
It's in progress for sure.
But I think it's pretty much there.
Whenever I see an image, or whenever I'm just scrolling my Instagram and I see a reel, all right, this is Gaurav. So that is
Thank you so much for
that. That is so beautiful. Yeah. All right, so let us talk a little about technology, like camera gear and the mode of the medium with which we click. How has it changed over the years?
So I think it is very well involved, so I have been not because by any means I represent Canon, but I think I've been a very avid user for Canon for a very long time, and all that for almost 16, 17 years. So what I feel that for me, I think, and as I advise the evolution, is that we always have to see that the skin tones, the characters, these principles are very seriously taken when you come from cinema backgrounds and cinema's technology also, that the original skin tones, the natural skin tones, the dynamic ranges of the camera, I think a lot of evolvement has happened, over the last 10 years, I would say last 10 to 14 years. So I remember the days that when 5D Mark II created a revolution in the industry,
right,
both of course in stills and also it was the first mover of video technology as well.
Everyone had 5D Mark.
Everyone so it was like the Colgate paste of the industry. Any paste you want, you say Colgate,
right,
and all that. So I think even today, in many of the shoots when we visit, we see it very often that if they want a lot of camera Bs, they want to take the secondary shots and many things into good films and all, they said ki wo 5D laga and all that, so 5D is so such has become it's a title name. So I think from that stage, where the first still and of course video advantages, now technology has seriously evolved. We have some of the very promising cameras, example in good still and hybrid videos like R6 Mark II now. R5 has been very promising in the field of wedding and fashion, I think.
And in our field as well.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, and even into wildlife segment because of its absolute response. When it translates into video technology, if you want to get more into dedicated side of cinematography in video, you have other options in the cinema segment, like you have your R5C and C70s and other C500s and Mark II and all those kind of higher grade cameras. So I think technology has really come multiple folds as it got digitalized, and I think we are in an absolute condition to have the correct gears with the Gen Zs keeping in mind and being absolutely promising gears in mind. So I think it's pretty much evolved with not just cameras but also on the lenses front, whether it's the RF technology or it is the cinema EOS technology, the Cine series lenses. I think the greatest part of Canon is that you have everything under one roof. You don't need to go to third parties, to find solutions. So that's, I think, is pretty much there.
Oh, that's very well answered. So let us talk about the consumption of medium. And I guess there's been a drastic change in the past 5 to 6 years. People have started consuming video more and photography less. Or how does it go? What do you think?
So I would say it's absolutely true. If you see yourself as a consumer, imagine where were the OTTs 5 years back? Other than cinemas, and where was the streaming of content other than the television broadcast and all that, because so how YouTube has evolved, drastically over a period of time. We are sitting in a podcast right now. This is an evolution of the video itself. I think video connects people, definitely, in a very different way, because the continuous motion transforms the storytelling in a very different way. So I would say when it comes to still, it's wrong to say that still will ever go. It's not true. I would say a lot of people feel that video is the in thing game. Yes, video is 100% going to take the larger pie of the content consumption, but when it will come to both still and video, example, a feed like yours, I really appreciate the way, when you call something of the stuff that you do, if I want to put a gigantic poster of my newborn daughter, or maybe as a family at my right the moment I enter in my lobby, it cannot be done with a video. So I think it's a fine balance of what still has to do justice. What has got changed over the time is that any photography is not acceptable anymore. It needs to be, it needs to have a commercial value, or it needs to have, example, journalism photography is not going anywhere, documentary photography is not going anywhere, weddings, we are in India, cannot go anywhere, fashion cannot go anywhere, and all that. But what has happened that the video element has got significantly added to whether it is from a perspective of how to explanations, whether it become educative or we need to make it more engaging and entertaining. That's one. And I think a lot of people are wanted to transit, that they are very strong in stills, and I think that's where anybody who has transited from stills to video has got their foundations very, very strong, because their composition, their colors, their post-productions, their planning, everything is in place.
Right.
You only need to think that what will work now in the video format with certain principles to know in video, and what will eventually will still work into stills. So I think both are going to be very important. I have to give a little more edge to video in future, because it connects and hold people, audience, for a little more longer time. And you see the behavior of Instagram was known to be for the ideal still platform, translating into reels a lot of time. YouTube being popular the way it was never before. You see it last 3 to 4 years to 5 years. So I think it's going to grow only. Like video business and video industry is also going to grow.
Very true. And I feel video is a way to tell the story to the world.
Yeah.
Like if someone is doing still, but video is a medium through which the artist can also tell their story.
Yes.
So we should, rather than just dejecting it, we should marry them both together. And then
marry is the correct way. Yes, marry is the correct way, I would say.
Yes. All right. So, taking the cue from what you just answered, for someone who's just starting out in photography, we get a lot of questions onto this thing that I really love photography, but then I don't know what genre should I be making my niche in. What do you suggest to someone who's into that situation?
So, it's a very particular thing that you evolve with time. You learn with time. You may start off with certain styles, but first of all, having inclination to the photography, I think at early birds and all the entry-level people, I would say, never get worried about what you start with, because initially you cannot hit a studio straight away because you can't rent it and all that, but you can always do experiments, with anything basically at home and all that. Like when I started my photography, now today I proudly tell you about the surrealism part or the creative direction part. I've got my interest a lot into the direction these days. But when I started, I used to come back from my office. I was working at that time also into animation industry. And I always, example today, if I picked like maybe a small, a couple of, maybe a bouquet of flowers or something like that and all that, I used to come back, used to spray them, and used to do some macro photography around with that, try to play with some ambience lights, nothing else. I was not clear, first of all, and I'm framing it even right. Am I trying to tell? So I think it starts from understanding the correct basics, like how to frame things, how to create a basic composition. Eventually, when you have character, you slowly learn your, all the rule of thirds and all that, and gradually, and slowly you start to break them. So I think that's where you start to become more confident and eventually you grow. So never hesitate, I would say, if anybody has this question that what I'm experimenting, go in nature, click people, click food, click street,
click in every
anything.
You can.
And you keep filtering. You keep on filtering gradually. You are very, very blessed if you have so clear focus that no, I love clicking people. So that means you will eventually grow into lifestyle, fashion, or you may go into weddings, you don't know, because you are in love with clicking faces and humans and all that. And you don't know, you may go into journalism or something like that. But I think that's a process. I think you should give them peaceful, if you have the peace in your head before entering this line. I think a peaceful few good years, have a lot of patience. I think this is my another parallel advice to you, connected to your question, is that a couple of things which I strongly feel is, seriously, I feel bad for the young ones that the decision-making power is good at the same time because of the availability of technology, but it is also struggling at the same time because of so many options. So decision power is something that people should improvise on. Patience, there's no shortcuts to art forms.
Very true.
Where you reach today, is all because you have been very, very dedicated to what you really wanted to do. So I would say that patience is a very, very crucial thing to do. But first, before getting into the craft, I think the patience, and decision making, is something people should really work a lot on in the beginning.
So another question, tell me, is it a myth or reality to become a world-class photographer? I just need to buy a mirrorless camera as my first camera and start with.
See, I think for people start with, you cannot hide the fact people start with phones to start with and all. Let's say it's a fact of the matter. But I think it eventually will take you only as a tool, which should eventually you use as a recce or a very basic tool to figure out how do I would. Example, if I don't have a screen, connected to my bigger screen, to my camera, professional camera. You know, like, so I know that I have a standby option, like in phone, to take my 16 by 9 frame, you know, like horizontally or vertically, both, to still understand am I at the correct place. So I think it's a myth and reality have got two parts to it. You know, like, nobody starts straight away professional.
Exactly.
So it's always good to, the reality is, you know, like, yes, it's a myth that you have to straight away get into a high-end camera. You should switch when you have arrived the correct stage.
Exactly.
It starts to become, if not bread and butter, but maybe you can start to smell the bread and butter towards it, that eventually I may earn out of it. The time gives you signals and all that, you know, like, you get that confidence level growing one after another stage. So always good to start with entry-level cameras. You have so many options these days, from a 60,000-70,000 bracket to
and which cameras, like, if I were to just ask you, like, two models for someone who wants to become a professional photographer, but they want to, you know, take a camera so that they can fiddle it with for a year or so. Which camera should they consider?
There are so good cameras, you know, like, now the good thing is, now even full frames has become so affordable. Like, today the camera like R8, which touches around a lakh of, slightly above lakh or something, it has become so easy, because when I started, I was always thinking that in few years I will get my first full frame.
Right.
That's how at least I started. So I started with 1000D and all that. I think it was a APS-C small, but I used that for good few years. So in today's time, a camera like like R50 in the mirrorless segment, I think the good camera, somebody interested in wildlife can dip into R7 kind of cameras, and eventually then they grow into full frames like R8, R6 Mark II, and so on and so forth, other cameras. So I think there's nothing to feel. I think today there is so much of social pressure on people that if I am not having a full frame camera, people will consider that, oh, you are not a photographer. Who gets an APS-C? It's not true, absolutely. Otherwise, what is the point of having vlogging cameras, you know, like R50 style of cameras and all? And they're known to be ideal for vlogging stuff and all. So it's absolutely a myth. You know, like, you can always start with a smaller camera.
They can always start with a crop sensor as well. They do not need to get into a full.
They can start. If it is, you are able to afford it. You know, like, if affordability is not a criteria to you and all that, you can take a liberty to switch to or start with an R8, which is also a decent, slightly above.
Isn't able to afford, they still have their.
They should go for APS-C. APS-Cs mirrorless are very good these days. Very, very good to start off.
And to name a camera, and like, which one would you suggest?
I would say just R100. You know, like, what should go with, or even R7. You know, like, I would say R10. I think these 2-3 options are pretty much good. R100 as good as a consumer or a home style camera. They just wanted to begin with.
Moms who just want to, you know, click their babies, and then eventually they would want to see if they want to venture into maternity or newborn. Either of these R100 or these.
So I would say R10 is a good camera, R100 is a good camera, and then gradually they can shift to R8.
Of course. So what even I feel, when I started, initially there is a lot to understand what's going on in the camera. Your camera should become an extension to my arm. That's what my mentor told me long back. And the moment you feel that has happened, of course you should upgrade, because you can do magic with a beautiful technology. But then to know that magic, at least you should know that mantra beforehand. Then only you can be a magician there. Right. So from the business perspective, say for example, someone who started photography, they want to get into photography. How do you suggest photographers to market themselves? Because it is not just clicking pictures and posting on Instagram, right? It's more on that. Should it be about the story behind them? Like 3 quick pointers which you would want to share it with our audience.
So I think it's a very valid question. I think when it comes to the business perspective, see, we are in an era where just being a good artist may not help you to sell yourself so easily. Even if you're 70% of artist, you need to have 13% of your ingredients made with marketing. So you need to know to market well, you know, like, so you eventually have to learn in the process. So on the business tip, I would say that please do not underestimate the marketing of your work, you know, like, because what if I do great piece of work sitting on with my systems, I go out, shoot, edit them, and I make frames and I put it in these closed walls. So only somebody enters this in this particular room, nobody knows that what I'm great about. So art has to be shared. That's a basic principle. It's not about photography. Any form of art needs to be appreciated by others, and it will have critics, it will have flaws, it will have appreciation. You need to welcome all of that,
Yes,
all
precisely.
that. So I think that's the only thing that we need to remember. It's a continuous process, never ending process, infinite, I would say. So what I would suggest that, yes, in that case, people should know there are two things that works pretty well when it comes to marketing. When you share your content from a business perspective also, whether it's a big feature film, okay, it's a short film, a documentary film, or a form of photography, either people should get entertained or people should get educated.
Perfect.
Or both.
Yes.
And all that.
Yes.
Once you have this combination, it takes you a different level. And you test it from Instagram reels to YouTube content to mainstream content. If Three Idiots made you laugh, Three Idiots also educated you at the same time. How to choose make choices in your life. And similar some many good examples like that. Dil Chahta Hai, all that. Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. I feel a lot of brilliant examples of that kind. So that it's very important. And you see some amazing documentary films, into wildlife, into ocean, saving the planets. About Planet Earth 2 series or Bus series and all. Every film or every still picture, if it has a message to entertain or educate or both, as I repeat, is something people should remember.
And that is exactly what you suggest we should bring out to the content which we are producing as photographers.
Yes. So I think if your content, you have to ask the simple question to yourself that when I posted this and someone watches it, what do they gain out of it? Do they get entertained? Do they get educated? Did I told about the process? Like you started, some of very few people have been courageous. I'm telling you, a lot of fear in no offense to any artist, but a lot of artists have fear that they want to keep their art forms and their knowledge in the shell. I think the first rule to be broken about the art is it has to be exploded.
It has to be shared.
Because you need to change your own benchmarks. And I think if you have that mind share, what will you do if you do a style of work, if it comes out, you are already into the challenge position that what will be my next level,
right,
and all that. So I think it's always good. We need to be humble, we need to be courageous enough to share what we all are doing and the process of how we did it.
Yes.
And all that. And I think that gives a signal. So it's a circle of education.
Right.
It's part of karma, as I believe also. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. And one last question before we end. One book which you recommend everyone to read, something, anything which has touched your heart.
One book which I tell is Ikigai. So I think that's one of the book which will touch every person who is not getting a direction in their life, you want it. So it's an excellent book, which tells you about how to bring, the correct, meeting points of what you love, what you are good at, what it can pay you, and what I'm doing to the society, and all that. So when you have the fine blend of all these four zones, you find your Ikigai. And all that. So it's a Japanese book, and it's pretty famous. You can find it in lots of shell. It has got versions now, and all that. So Ikigai is the book.
All right, perfect. I'll read that right away today. Thank you so much for being here, Gaurav. It was a pleasure, and as you said, it's a journey for all of us to grow and work together, share, and then grow even more. Everyone grows. It's a community. It's a circle. If I go from here to here, someone else comes from here to here. And that's where we all complete this circle of life.
Wonderful, likewise.
Thank you so much, Gaurav.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Barkha.
Thank you.